Welcome to Damn Good Movie Memories with your host, Brian Davis. This podcast is the cure for your long commute and super boring workday.
It happened once before.
Some muggers followed my wife and daughter home from the market.
It's about to happen again.
The police there got a very good description of the muggers, too. But it didn't do any good.
We do what we can.
And so does he.
Is this your daughter, Mr. Kersey? Mr. Kersey, is that Carol?
When murder and rape are the crimes, Bronson is the only punishment. Charles Bronson, Death Wish 2.
There's something else you should know, sir. Paul Kersey now lives in Los Angeles.
Oh, my God.
Now you tell me there's a vigilante out there.
You believe in Jesus?
Yes, I do.
Well, you're going to meet him.
He killed 9 people in New York City 4 years ago. The people he killed were muggers. He became a hero.
What did he look like?
He was a very good citizen, that's what he was.
That guy saved our lives, damn it. Where the hell were you guys, giving out parking tickets?
When violence rules the city, when the police can't stop it, one man will, his way.
Watch out!
Charles Bronson.
Goodbye.
Death Wish 2. He's doing it for you.
Hey there, it's Brian Davis, and for this week's episode, we're going to cover the movie Death Wish 2 from 1982. The studio was Cannon Films. The release date was February 19th, 1982. The running time, 88 minutes, and it was rated R. The budget, $8 million. The box office took in $16 million, making it the 48th ranked movie of 1982. Now, Roger Ebert at the time, he didn't give it a 4-star rating, or he didn't give it any rating. He just gave it a thumbs down, but he did have a review. You will have noticed that I have given a no stars rating for Death Wish 2, starring Charles Bronson as an urban vigilante. A word of explanation. In my movie rating system, the most a movie can get is 4 stars, and the least is ordinarily half a star. I award no stars only to movies that are artistically inept and morally repugnant. So Death Wish 2 joins such unsavory company as Penitentiary 2 and I Spit on Your Grave. And that, in a way, is a shame. I have a certain admiration for the screen presence of Charles Bronson. In his good roles, he can be lean, quiet, and efficient. He often co-stars with his wife, Jill Ireland, as he does in this movie. And she is pleasant and a capable actress. They were charming together in a little scene movie named From Noon to 3. This time, however, Bronson and Ireland and everyone else involved in Death Wish 2 create a great disappointment. Although the original Death Wish from 1974 had its detractors, it was an effective movie that spoke directly to the law and order mentality of the Nixon-Ford era. It was directed with a nice, slick polish by Michael Winner, and on its own terms, it worked. Death Wish 2 is a disaster by comparison. It has the same director, Winner, but he directs the dialogue scenes as if the actors' shoes were nailed to the floor. It has 2 of the same stars, Bronson and New York cop Vincent Gardenia, but they seem shell-shocked by weariness in this film. It has the same plot, but while the first film convinced me of Bronson's need for vengeance, this one is just a series of dumb killings. What's most shocking about Death Wish 2 is the lack of artistry and skill in the filmmaking. The movie is underwritten and desperately underplotted, so that its witless action scenes alternate with lobotomized dialogue passages. The movie doesn't contain an ounce of life. It slinks onto the screen and squirms for a while, and is over. And that's the end of Ebert's review. I think this is the first 0-star review from Ebert I've covered on this podcast. They can't all be winners, folks. But that doesn't mean that this film should be avoided either. Personally, I'm entertained by Cannon Films, which were known for their camp and overt violence. As for Charles Bronson, I'm a huge fan as well. So while I get that all the Death Wish sequels get progressively more awful as they go, I don't really care. I enjoy the films for what they are. All right, let's get into the main cast. Of course, Charles Bronson plays Paul Kersey. Now, I covered the first Death Wish film back in episode 138, so listen to that episode if you aren't aware of the Death Wish series backstory. As for Bronson, I've also covered 2 of his other films, St. Ives from 1976 and 10 to Midnight from 1983. You can get the backstory of his career as well in those episodes. Joe Ireland plays Jerry Nichols. As Ebert mentioned, Bronson and Ireland were married from 1968 until her death in 1990 from breast cancer. The couple appeared in 16 films together, with the most notable being The Mechanic, Breakout, Hard Times, and this film, Death Wish 2. The director, Michael Winner. As Ebert mentioned, he also directed the first Death Wish film in 1974. From that film until Death Wish 2, he directed 4 films. One was the weirdly titled Juan Tauntaun, the Dog Who Saved Hollywood. The Sentinel with Ava Gardner, The Big Sleep, which was a remake of the Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall film. This one starred Robert Mitchum. And Firepower with Sophia Loren, James Coburn, and O.J. Simpson. Winner would also go on to direct Death Wish 3 in 1985, and Bronson was instrumental in having Winner direct Death Wish 2. All right, let's get into the making of the film. So as I mentioned in the first Death Wish episode, the author of the original novel, Brian Garfield, despised the film adaptation because he believed in the film the Paul Kersey character was transformed into a hero, which was not the intent of his novel. Now, Garfield wrote a sequel to his original novel of Death Wish in 1975, and it was called Death Sentence to steer the character to a less heroic angle. In 1980, Cannon Films hired Garfield to write an adapted screenplay of Death Sentence. However, the producers, Golan and Globus, who ran Cannon, ended up wanting a story instead of an adaptation, and that's what you get in Death Wish 2. Charles Bronson was paid $1.5 million to reprise his role of Paul Kersey. Also, no surprise, Bronson insisted that his wife Jo Ireland be hired to co-star. Interestingly enough, Ireland was supposed to play Bronson's wife in the original Death Wish, but at the time, he didn't want his real-life wife victimized on screen because that's what the character called for in that film. Now, most rock music fans are aware of this film, Death Wish 2, because Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page wrote and performed the score for the film. Now, Zeppelin had officially disbanded after the death of drummer John Bonham in 1980, and this would be Jimmy Page's first original material post-Led Zeppelin. Though, before I get grief on social media from all the Jimmy Page fans, yes, Page was involved with a band called XYZ, featuring Chris Squire and Alan White from the band, yes. However, that band never actually released material that was recorded with Page at the time, so we're splitting hairs here. Originally, the producers wanted Isaac Hayes to compose the score because he had tons of success in the 70s, composing scores for many films, most notably Shaft. However, director Michael Winner was neighbors with Jimmy Page and asked him to score the film. Also, Led Zeppelin manager Peter Grant believed this was an opportunity that would be good for Page to get out of his creative rut after the demise of Led Zeppelin. All right, let's get into the film. So it opens with the skyline of Los Angeles and the score from Jimmy Page, which you can definitely recognize from his guitar tone.
This is KABC Radio. I'm Jerry Nichols. Latest crime statistics released today show an alarming rise in violence. In the last 5 years, homicides in Los Angeles County are up 79%. Robberies are up 68%. Aggravated assault, another violent crime, shows an increase of 59%. Rapes have increased 61%, and lesser crimes are up too. Today, I spoke to Los Angeles Police Commissioner Herman Baldwin.
The fear of crime has brought a deterioration of our community. It's almost as if we've been struck by enemy bombs. The number of citizens killed and maimed by criminal violence has produced in me a great and personal resolve. The only way we're going to win, make no mistake, this is a war. The only way we'll win is by assuming the offensive. Positive policing is the answer. We've got to deploy all our resources, or criminal violence will destroy our community.
But what are the resources needed to diminish the alarming rise in crimes?
We then cut to the home of Paul Kersey, that's Charles Bronson, who was listening to the radio about the high crime rates in Los Angeles and eating lunch with his housekeeper, Rosario, played by Silvana Gallardo. The voice of the broadcaster is Paul's girlfriend, Jerry, played by Jill Ireland, and the radio spot is pre-recorded as she pulls up to the house. It's been 8 years since the last film in which Paul's wife was raped and killed, and his daughter Carol was also raped, but she survived. Now, Carol has been in a mental institution ever since the attack, and Paul and Jerry visit her often, but her recovery has been incredibly slow, and she barely speaks. Paul and Jerry take Carol to the park for the day, but trouble always seems to find Paul Kersey.
I remember you liked kites when you were a kid. You still like them? We haven't bought you your ice cream yet.
You mean we haven't bought you your ice cream yet?
A man has to have some vices. But I'll tell you what. You choose whatever you want from this table, and I'll go off and buy the ice cream. Look at him.
See what it looks like.
Let's do it.
Out the way. Out the way. Watch out, asshole. Get your ice cream.
That's nice.
Where's my wallet?
I ain't got it.
Guess what? I got up to the front of the line and discovered I forgot my wallet. This time you two come with me. But I'm gonna have to borrow some money.
I think we can manage that.
Now, one of the actors from the gang that stole Paul's wallet was none other than Lawrence Fishburne in an early role. Now, Paul took away the knife from one of the guys but never got back his wallet as they fled. Unfortunately, the gang didn't just want his cash and cards, but decided to show up at his house since they also have his driver's license. Rosario is the only one at home at the time. By the way, one of the main gang members is named Stomper, played by Kevin Major Howard, and he has an amazingly bad haircut. Or maybe it's amazingly awesome for some folks. Well, it's a mullet.
This is the place. super fine.
Easy, my man. We got business.
Mark, I thought you weren't coming.
Oh, you know I wouldn't.
You are going to marry. Have you told Janet?
I will.
You said you were going to tell her last
Who is it?
I got a delivery from Mr. Kersey.
Who from?
For that last week.
Who is this delivery from?
I can't rub out 10 years of marriage like it never happened. I've got to think of the children.
If you don't tell us later.
Just her and no one else here. And we wanted to give Mr. Kersey his wallet back. Personally.
Rosario is brutally gang raped while they wait for Paul to arrive home. Paul eventually arrives home with Carol, but not Jerry.
Hungry? Let's see what Rosario has for dinner. Rosario! Rosario! We're home!
Now, Paul gets in a few good punches, but eventually is knocked out by a crowbar to the back of his head. Rosario tries to call the police, but she's hit with a crowbar and she's killed. The gang flees the house but kidnaps Carol, who now has to have the same trauma occur all over again. She is taken to their hideout. Jerry arrives at Paul's house later at the night and frantically knocks on the door. This wakes him up, and they both discover the body of Rosario. At the same time, Carol is raped by one of the members as she tries to flee.
Kersey, I'm Inspector Mankiewicz. I know it's a terrible time.
Any news of my daughter?
Not yet, but as soon as we hear anything, we'll let you know. Mr. Kersey, the descriptions you gave the officers about your attackers, they're very unclear. Is there anything that you can add?
I came in this front door. There were two men standing there. There were at least two men back there. One of them hits me on the head, and I'm knocked unconscious.
Well, surely you saw one of them before you were attacked.
Hey, I told you, man, everything I know.
We understand that the same sort of thing happened in New York City. We ran it down in our computer.
Yeah, that's right. Some muggers followed my wife and daughter home from the market. The police there got a very good description of the muggers, too. but it didn't do any good.
We do what we can. Oh, one of my men found this on the floor.
Oh, honey, if they don't need us anymore, let's go back to my place. They're going to be all night.
Mr. Kersey, we just got some news about your daughter.
How is she?
Is this your daughter, Mr. Kersey? Mr. Kersey, is that Carol?
When Carol jumped and crashed through the warehouse window, she impaled herself on a metal fence. Paul is devastated yet again with another senseless tragedy to his family, and he decides that, yet again, the neutered police, and especially politicians with their soft stance on crime, can do nothing for his murdered daughter and housekeeper. Only he alone can get justice for his family. Now, Paul continues to work as a high-profile architect in an attempt to keep a normal lifestyle. Paul also refuses to be cooperative with the detectives with regards to going through some mugshots of potential suspects. And the reason is simple. Paul knows exactly who killed his daughter and housekeeper. He just wants to take them out himself. Paul decides to do some recon work at night, looking in the seediest parts of town where he believes the gang would be hanging out. He wears all black with a stocking cap and stays at a Fleabag motel to blend in. However, Jerry starts to wonder where Paul keeps spending his nights because he's never home when she calls. Now keep in mind, Jerry is actually against the death penalty for criminals, which is part of the reason Paul keeps his plans private. Paul's investigative work does eventually pay off one night when he finds the gang.
That's them. There they are. Let's go.
You believe in Jesus? Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
Hell yeah! Bronson is as badass as Clint Eastwood playing Dirty Harry. Paul lets the drug dealers go, but he specifically makes sure that the mullet man Stomper gets the fate he deserves. He's shot dead next to the rats. Paul goes home and talks to Jerry on the phone.
Mr. Kersey, you want to join the party?
No, thanks.
Hearing on the Sausalito area of San Francisco, killed 3 people and wounded over 1,000.
Hello.
You're in.
$1 million.
Been in all night?
I called.
I haven't been answering the phone. Those newspaper people keep calling ever since. Well, I just haven't been answering.
Can I cook dinner for you tomorrow night?
Friday night's better.
Friday night, then.
Okay. Night.
Reports that 2 men were found tonight shot dead in the now vacant Hollywood Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. Police believe the 2 deaths are drug-related. Names have been withheld pending notification of the families.
Paul continues his nightly hunt to track down and kill each one of the gang members. He finds one of the guys attempting to rape a woman in a parking garage with some other thugs outside of his own gang. Paul shoots and kills 2 of the attackers. One gets away, but Paul does get the man who is trying to rape the woman and also raped his daughter and housekeeper. He shoots him in the leg and then follows the blood trail.
Some guy pops up out of nowhere. He starts shooting, and you and your wife don't know what he looks like.
That guy saved our lives, damn it. Where the hell were you guys? Giving out parking tickets?
Hold him. All right, lady.
Hey, Ben, over here.
What did he look like?
He was,
He was a very good citizen, that's what he was.
He was a killer. Now you want to stay here forever? Quiet that way. You're vital witnesses. Now don't play games with me. You both saw him. Now I want the description.
He's 21. Blonde with a club foot.
It's funny. From where I was, he was a large black man with a red beard. Now, you let these guys get me to the hospital, or I'm going to give the press interviews you won't believe.
Take him.
Upstairs.
You know what we got here, don't you? A goddamn vigilante.
You're goddamn right. A vigilante that's doing a fabulous job wiping out scum and saving taxpayer dollars. Look, Kersey would get my vote. There's one man that is fully aware of what Paul Kersey is capable of, and that's Lieutenant Frank Ochoa, played by Vincent Gardenia from New York City. As you remember from the first film, it's Ochoa that tried to stop Paul from his vigilante spree 8 years prior. Ochoa arrives in Los Angeles in order to assist the LAPD in stopping the current vigilante and gives them all he knows about Paul. However, Ochoa isn't doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He's ordered by the DA in New York, along with the New York City Police Commissioner, that he needs to bring in Paul before the LAPD gets him. Because if it gets out that New York essentially let Paul move cross-country and start a new life when they knew full well that he was the vigilante 8 years prior, then that would be a PR nightmare for the NYPD. Okay, there's about 45 minutes left, and will either coast be able to catch Paul Kersey before he attempts to take out all of the gang members that killed his daughter and housekeeper? And what about his relationship with Jerry? Considering that there are 3 more Death Wish films after this one, you can take a wild guess at the outcome, but the ride is still fun to watch. There's also an awesome shootout later in the film that is very well done. Now look, I must say, and I've said this before, I absolutely adore revenge films, along with the canon films from the 1980s. So, this will never win any awards. No canon film will. But I tend to think big cities that are crime-ridden currently, like San Francisco or Oakland, might benefit from a Paul Kersey roaming the streets at night instead of the current undesirable criminal element that inhabits all of these towns. I'll leave it at that. And here's the end credits score from Jimmy Page. All right, some fun facts. According to Michael Winner's biography, Charles Bronson, alcoholic brother, often visited the set to borrow money. Bronson was careful not to give him too much in case someone might kill him for it. He was later found dead in a cheap hotel room after being stabbed in the butt. So in an interview, Silvana Gallardo, who plays the housekeeper, said the rape scene was grueling and it took about 6 days to film. To prepare for the role, she actually talked to an actual rape victim. She also said the scene was mostly improvised and that the actors who played the criminals raping her would immediately cover her up with a robe or blanket when Michael Winner yelled cut. Michael Winner gave the actors playing the thugs a lot of creative leeway. They bought their own costumes, they designed their own makeup, and tested them out on passersby to see how intimidating they looked. Lawrence Fishburne bought a pair of magician's gloves and waved the knife like a wand, while Kevin Major Howard waxed his eyebrows and shaved the front of his head to make himself look like a snake. He even developed mannerisms like his insane laugh and slapping his head and twirling a baton. He saw this from a punk band where he saw the drummer play live. Also a musician and podcaster is our special guest, Ralph Vieira from the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast. He also has a very popular Almost Human 56 YouTube page where he does these track-by-track, side-by-side album reviews. They're a lot of fun. We mostly chat about the soundtrack of Death Wish 2, along with why Jimmy Page didn't do much soul-wise after Led Zeppelin. So we get his take on that. We also talk a little bit about the film, and then I'll be back next week to talk about yet another random movie from my DVD collection.
Okay, we're back with longtime guest and definite supporter of Damn Good Movie Memories, and that is Ralph Vieira, Dr. Fuck from the Rock and Metal Combat Podcast and the Almost Human YouTube channel. Welcome back, Ralph.
Right on, smack 'em a go, Brian. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, and so I know you're a fan of the original Death Wish, which came out in the 70s, and we already know that you're a huge fan of 70s movies. Now, Death Wish 2, the sequel, didn't come out till 82, and you said you own it, but I know you didn't really get into the sequels. You've seen them all, but they're not something you really revisit, and why is that?
Well, as far as this one goes, I remember seeing it in the theater and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no problem with Death Wish 2, actually. I liked all the Death Wish. I think was there a Death Wish 4, the last one?
No, there was a 5. It all lit in 94.
5 is when he had like a rocket launcher and the
Oh,
cities.
sure.
Yeah, that one I didn't like too much, but every one before I enjoyed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, vigilante films are fun. They're like the Chuck Norris, the Cannon films. I mean, they're just, And by then, it kind of became self-parody. Now, one of the things I really wanted to talk about, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the film if you want to remember, but I think for your fans is, the fact that Jimmy Page was the one that did the score and the soundtrack for this film. And so I think you said, do you have this on vinyl, this soundtrack?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So when you saw the film, did you even know that he did the soundtrack, or was it something when you saw score soundtrack done by Jimmy Page on the credits, was that, well, holy shit?
No, I knew.
Okay.
It was in magazines. It was big news back then because it was like the first thing Jimmy Page did after Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
And people were wondering what he was going to do. And yeah, this was big news. I remember knowing this even before I saw the movie, that Jimmy Page did the soundtrack. And yeah, I bought the soundtrack. Hey, I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, so so when Robert Plant released Pictures 11, I bought that, and then I bought this Death Wish 2.
And did you like the soundtrack? I mean, it's mostly score music.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of it, though. I gotta say, I do not dislike it. I disliked Outrider, to tell you the truth. His next solo album I thought was even weaker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can kind of forgive Death Wish because it's a score.
Sure.
But, I enjoyed it more than Outrider, though I think the best thing that Page did after Zeppelin was Coverdale Page.
No doubt. I mean, I total agreement with that. I wish they had done more. I hope that David Coverdale actually does do a reissue of that with more tracks. Were you ever disappointed that really Jimmy Page really didn't do much after Zeppelin disbanded?
Very, very extremely disappointed because, especially after hearing Coverdale Page, it's like, God damn, dude, you have all this talent in you, and it took you this long to release this. I enjoyed the Clarksdale, the
Okay.
Plan album too. I did enjoy that album a lot, actually. Not as much as Coverdale Page, but so it was different, but it was cool, and I dug it. But Coverdale Page was like, heavy Jimmy. A real funny story about Coverdale Page was I used to go to this record store called Blue Note.
Okay.
And it was a Sunday. I know it was on a Sunday. I went there. And when I walked in, I knew the guy, Greg. He worked in the things. Like, dude, you'll never believe who was just in here 20 minutes ago. I was like, who? He's like, David Coverdale and Jimmy Page.
Wow.
They were both in there. I was like, you got to be shitting me. And yeah, they took a picture. But, it was one of those disposable cameras that.
Sure.
I didn't see the picture that day, but they later put it up.
Oh.
And I was like, fuck, I missed them by 20 minutes because they recorded that album down at Criteria Studios, which was only like 2-3 miles away from Blue Note. But I had no idea they were here making an album,
And actually, it kind of pushed Robert Plant to reunite with Page. I think he kind of got jealous about what they put out with Coverdale.
Totally. He even badmouthed Coverdale and shit. Which I don't get, man. It's like, you're praising Greta Van Fleet today.
Mm-hmm.
He says so many nice things about Greta Van Fleet. You got to remember, man, David Coverdale was in Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And that wasn't no Led Zeppelin ripoff shit. It's like, I don't know. Robert Plant's a weird dude. I love Robert Plant, but his brain is whacked. I mean, he hates Stairway to Heaven. I don't like anybody that doesn't like Stairway to Heaven. You need to like that if you want to be my friend.
Agreed. And speaking of Jimmy Page, arguably his best guitar solo is still Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Robert Plant's grown up to be a bitter fool.
Yeah, I mean, he won't do Zeppelin stuff. I mean, he'll do some of the bluesy stuff. But speaking of Plant, what are your favorite solo albums from him?
Well, definitely Picture 11. I liked what was the one that came after that? Momentary? No, I forgot. The one that had Big Log. And I pretty much kept up with his solo career.
Oh, Principle of Moments.
Principle of Moments. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I pretty much kept up with him. All his solo albums. I enjoyed them all to a degree, but the first two were my favorite.
Now, I think you mentioned you don't like The Firm at all with Paul Rodgers, right?
No, but I did like the song Rest in Peace off the second album.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that song was awesome. Yeah, and I went to go see The Firm at the Sportatorium, and it was sold out. I was trying to sneak in the whole show. I couldn't get in. I was at a Firm concert, but I didn't see him.
Do you know who opened?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Okay. No, it's curious because you would think on paper, Paul Rodgers and Jimmy Page should knock it out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the first album tour, Radioactive and all that.
Yeah.
I wasn't into none of that, but I went to the show, man, thinking I was going to buy a ticket at the venue. When I got there, I found out it was sold out, and I was bummed, man.
Yeah. If you could we'll go in the time machine, if you could partner up Jimmy Page with any artist or band after Zeppelin, who would you have chosen?
After Zeppelin, Jesus Christ, I think I'd go with Coverdale.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they did together. It was phenomenal. Would have been nice, an early 80s album like that with those songs.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been huge. I'm telling you, that would have been an arena act through the whole decade, I think, if Coverdale and Page made their first album in 81.
Yeah.
It would have been huge. So, yeah, I would say I would like Coverdale with Jimmy Page over anybody, really.
What about Glenn Hughes? Do you think that could have been good?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been great, too. But Glenn Hughes, and believe me, Glenn Hughes is one of my favorite singers. I'm about to go see him in a month or two.
Oh, cool.
I love his singing, but it doesn't have that bluesy thing that Coverdale had. I think Coverdale would have complimented Page a little bit more,
Here's one that could have been great. Ray Gillen.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been ideal for everyone. I mean, you basically would have had the second coming of Badlands, kind of.
Yeah, Robin Zander would have been nice too.
Oh yeah, that could have been great. Yeah, it makes you wonder why didn't Page do more? I mean, why do you think he didn't do more?
Can you imagine Page and Freddie Mercury?
Oh God, yeah.
That would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
really,
there's a lot of possibilities there, man.
The only band he really went out with was the Black Crowes, and that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, he'll do all the Zeppelin stuff, and I think it's probably just too late to do, more things. But maybe he was just like, I'm burnt, because, he had a career before Zeppelin.
Yeah, who knows his reasons? All I know is he's Jimmy Page.
Yep.
And he's immortal. He'll always be a god to me. I don't care if he, that whole thing he did with Puffy.
Yeah.
Godzilla thing. I don't care. I don't give a fuck about that. He's Jimmy Page. He's allowed to do crap. He's allowed to do a thing with Puffy. Fuck it. You know how many millions he got for that? Good. Jimmy Page will always be immortal. Listen to Physical Graffiti. Listen to the song, The Rain Song. And that's it. Yep. Just the Rain Song alone puts him in God status with me.
So we'll pivot a little bit to Charles Bronson. And so can you name some of your favorite Bronson films besides Death Wish? And are you a fan of vigilante films?
Yes. I really like a Bronson film I own called Breakout.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater, too, when it was new.
Mm-hmm.
Love The Mechanic. The Mechanic is awesome.
Great ending.
Yeah. There's a few more I can't think of offhand, but I love Charles Bronson, man. He was a badass, man.
And I think it was Hard Times where he plays a boxer. That's
Hard
a good one.
Times.
Yeah.
Another great movie. I saw when it was brand new. Yeah, Charles Bronson was a big deal when I was a little kid. We all love Charles Bronson.
And what's crazy, by the time he really started to get popular in the 70s, he was already in his 50s.
Yeah. I don't know what did Bronson continue like after the Death Wish stuff, mid 80s. I don't think I ever saw Bronson anymore.
Well, did you ever see 10 to Midnight where he's kind of chasing a serial killer?
Yes.
That's a great one. One I mentioned to you that you might want to check out is The Evil That Men Do. It's kind of a similar, he's trying to find like kind of a Nazi that is hiding out in South America. He's trying to capture him. He's like this evil doctor. That's another good one. And Murphy's Law is pretty good. He kind of always plays the same thing. He's usually a cop or a vigilante.
Yeah, I love Charles Bronson, man. Part of my youth.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again for doing this, Ralph. I know for most people, they're like, well, we didn't really talk about Death Wish, but I don't care because I love Jimmy Page and it's right up your alley. So thank you for doing this, and definitely check out the Almost Human YouTube pages where you get all of these head-to-head albums. Some Ralph loves, some he doesn't, and those that he doesn't, he calls suck for suck. And do those actually do better than the ones you like just because you hate them?
Yeah, actually they do.
Yeah.
People just love drama.
Right.
And most of them, they're heavily commented by people that really dislike that I dislike whatever the fuck I'm talking about.
Right.
They get really, really angry with me. And that's some funny stuff.
Well, it's funny. Before the internet, like I think a lot of people, I didn't realize you weren't supposed to like certain albums. And it's like once the internet comes in, everyone starts to get offended over everything. It's kind of surreal.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if you noticed lately on the podcast page, I write the most retarded comments. Like these, I'm like, oh, a lot of things I like you would hate, but the stuff that I hate that you like is funny because it sucks so bad, Just these stupid ass things, and some people take it serious. Like I'm really serious, so I continue to do it for the fools.
Well, that and you weed out the people that are just stupid. I love all the Manowar stuff. That's always hilarious.
Yeah, the Manowar stuff is totally tongue in cheek. I mean that whole blood of my enemies and kill with power and all that shit. It's funny, man. I don't take that shit serious.
No, you got to troll the trolls.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Manowar shit I find stupid,
Oh, sure.
I like to go into that whole Manowar mode to be like a stupid fan.
Right.
A Man-O-Warrior.
Well, if you want to have fun and you like rock and metal music, definitely join the Facebook page. It's a lot of fun. And always check out Ralph's material because, again, he does so much. He puts so much material out there. He never stops working. And I appreciate all the effort you put in. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
Okay. Thanks, Ralph.
Right on, smack 'em a gob.
If you enjoy this podcast and are an iTunes user, please do the show a favor and head on over to the official iTunes page for Damn Good Movie Memories. Be sure to leave a rating and a review. This will allow the show to appear higher in the algorithm and spread the joy of this podcast to the masses. If you are not an iTunes user, you can still listen and subscribe on Podbean at damngoodmoviememories.podbean.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook under our Damn Good Movie Memories page. You can also listen to a limited number of episodes on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode of Damn Good Movie Memories.